Toddler girl found a German shepherd chained and crying. What happened next shocked everyone. Sometimes, the smallest voices speak the loudest truths. What this little girl did for a stranger, not even human, shocked an entire city and reminded us that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes, they wear muddy shoes and carry broken souls in their tiny arms. Like, share, and subscribe if this story touched your heart. The sun was slipping behind the rows of houses on Maplewood Lane, casting long, dusky shadows that stretched across the quiet neighborhood street. The air held a strange stillness, as if the world itself was holding its breath. It was one of those evenings when the usual hum of children's laughter and distant car engines seemed to fade away, replaced by an unsettling silence. Somewhere between the soft rustling of autumn leaves and the faint glow of porch lights, something unusual was waiting to be discovered. Amid this fading light, little Mia toddled down the sidewalk, her wide eyes curious and bright despite the growing gloom. Barely 3 years old, she was fearless in the way only toddlers can be, drawn to the smallest wonders and mysteries of the world around her. On this particular evening, her little feet carried her a bit farther than usual, guided by an instinct she couldn't yet explain. There was something different tonight, something that tugged at her attention like a whisper in the wind. As Mia rounded the corner near the old, abandoned lot that sat just beyond the last house, she stopped suddenly. There, in the half-shadow beneath a weathered oak tree, sat a German shepherd. But this was no ordinary dog at rest. The dog was chained tightly to a rusty iron stake driven deep into the ground, its body trembling not just from cold but from fear and exhaustion. The soft, heart-wrenching whimpers and muffled cries that escaped its throat seemed to freeze the very air around them. Mia knelt down cautiously, her tiny hands reaching out, trembling just a bit with a mix of curiosity and concern. The dog's eyes, wide, dark, and filled with an aching vulnerability, met hers, and in that moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them. The dog was alone, trapped in a situation it didn't deserve, crying quietly for help it wasn't sure would ever come. Its fur was matted and damp from the day's lingering humidity, and the chain clinked faintly as it shifted, reminding everyone around of the cruel captivity it endured. Nearby, a few neighbors had started to gather, drawn by the sound of the dog's distress and the sight of a small child so unafraid to approach the helpless animal. Their expressions were a mix of surprise, sympathy, and disbelief. "Who would do such a thing?" whispered Mrs. Thompson, clutching her coat tighter against the evening chill. "That poor dog, and that little girl, all alone out here." Some moved closer, while others hesitated, unsure whether to intervene or call for help. The tension in the air thickened, a combination of outrage at the cruelty and worry for the safety of both toddler and dog. Mia's innocence and courage in the face of such sadness tugged fiercely at the hearts of everyone watching. Her small voice broke the heavy silence as she gently cooed, "It's okay. I'm here," as if the dog could understand her soft, simple words. The dog's trembling slowed just a little, and it leaned forward, nuzzling Mia's hand as if finding a flicker of comfort in the little girl's presence. That moment, pure and fragile, was enough to pull at the deepest strings of empathy. But behind that fragile bond lay a story much darker and more complicated than anyone could have guessed. The chains, the tears, the desperation in the dog's eyes, they all hinted at a heartbreaking past, a tale of neglect, fear, and loneliness. What had happened to this German shepherd? Why was it left there, forgotten and chained, crying quietly under the dying daylight? The questions hung heavily in the air, unanswered but urgent. As the dusk deepened into night, shadows lengthened and the crowd grew. Phones were quietly brought out, calls were made, and whispers of animal control and rescue began to spread. Yet even in the midst of the growing commotion, Mia remained steadfast, her tiny frame shielded protectively over the chained dog. Her silent determination to stay with the hurting creature sent a powerful message. Sometimes, the smallest hearts hold the greatest courage. And just when it seemed that the night's chill could not grow any colder, a sudden movement from the dog startled everyone. A brief, desperate pull against the chains, a plea for freedom that echoed louder than words. It was clear the story was only just beginning. What would happen next? Would help arrive in time? And more importantly, could Mia's bravery be enough to change the fate of this forsaken German shepherd? The street lights flickered on, casting a pale glow over the scene as the crowd waited, breath held, for the next chapter in this unfolding tale of pain, hope, and unexpected friendship. Before that chilly evening when Mia found the German shepherd chained and crying, this dog had a story filled with loyalty, love, and heartbreak. His name was Max, though few knew it anymore. Max had once been the proud guardian of a warm, bustling home at the edge of Maplewood Lane, where laughter filled the air and children played beneath the sun. He was more than just a pet. He was a protector, a friend, and a silent witness to a family's joys and sorrows. Max had been with the Harrisons for nearly 8 years. Mr. Harrison, a retired firefighter, had rescued the German shepherd puppy from a shelter, promising him a life full of care and devotion. From the very start, Max showed his fierce loyalty. He would sit by the front door for hours, waiting for his humans to return from work or errands. He was always alert, his deep bark warning of any strangers or dangers nearby. The neighborhood had come to know Max as a kind, yet watchful presence, a dog that seemed to understand more than most. But as the years passed, life changed for the Harrisons. Illness struck unexpectedly, and the family began to withdraw from their neighbors and community. Mr. Harrison's health declined, and with it, the warmth that had once filled the house seemed to fade. Max, ever faithful, stayed close by, sensing the shifting tides of despair but powerless to change the course. Eventually, the house grew quiet, doors rarely opened, and Max's role shifted from protector to silent sufferer. Then came the day no one in the neighborhood wanted to talk about. Mr. Harrison passed away quietly, leaving the house empty and the dog alone. Without his family's care, Max's world crumbled. The people who were supposed to step in, relatives, neighbors, caretakers, drifted away or turned a blind eye. In a heartbreaking act of neglect, Max was left chained to the backyard's iron stake, the rusted chain biting into his neck, his food and water sparse and inconsistent. Rumors began to swirl through the neighborhood. Some whispered that the dog had become aggressive, barking wildly at anyone who approached. Others said he was just a sad shadow of his former self, forgotten and abandoned. Fear mingled with pity as Max's cries echoed through the streets, but no one acted until that fateful evening when Mia, with the innocence only a child could have, chose to listen. The stories about Max's suffering spread like wildfire. Neighbors who had once smiled and waved now looked away with guilt or anxiety. Some were afraid to get involved, worried about what might happen if they confronted the owners or tried to free the dog. Others were moved by the silent pain radiating from the chained figure beneath the oak tree. The community divided, some paralyzed by fear, others awakened by compassion. Amid this growing concern, Mia's family found themselves unexpectedly at the heart of the situation. The young toddler lived just a few houses away, in a cozy home filled with warmth and love, a stark contrast to the loneliness that had gripped Max. Her parents, Sarah and David, were active members of the community, known for their kindness and openness. They encouraged Mia's curiosity and compassion, teaching her the value of empathy even at such a tender age. When Sarah heard about Max, her heart ached. She remembered the dog from happier times, when he would accompany Mr. Harrison on evening walks and greet the neighborhood children with a gentle wag of his tail. Now, seeing Max chained and crying stirred something deep within her, a fierce resolve to help, to make things right. For Mia, the encounter with Max was more than a chance meeting. It was the beginning of a mission born out of love and innocence. The stakes could not have been clearer. Max's suffering was a stark reminder of the consequences of neglect, of a community's failure to protect one of its own. But it also ignited a flicker of hope, that rescue was possible, that even the smallest among them could spark change. Mia's family became a symbol of that hope, rallying neighbors to action and pushing past fear to confront the heartbreaking reality. As the days passed and the story unfolded, it became evident that Max's fate was intertwined with that of the community itself. The pain he endured mirrored the fractures between neighbors, fear, judgment, and silence. But his rescue promised something different: healing, unity, and compassion rekindled. The dog's past, though marked by loss, was the foundation for a future shaped by courage and care. Through it all, Mia's gentle presence reminded everyone of a simple truth: no one, human or animal, should ever suffer alone. Max's chains might have bound his body, but they could never imprison the spirit of loyalty and love that connected him to those who finally chose to fight for him. The evening air hung heavy with tension as little Mia approached the spot where Max was chained. Her tiny footsteps were cautious, barely making a sound on the cracked pavement. The rain had softened to a drizzle, and the fading light cast long shadows across the street. Though she was just a toddler, barely old enough to walk steadily on her own, Mia's eyes shone with a quiet determination. Something about the German shepherd's sorrowful whimpers called to her, a silent plea that only a heart like hers could hear. Nearby, a few adults watched nervously. Sarah, Mia's mother, held her breath, her fingers gripping the edge of her coat as she struggled between fear and trust. "Mia, sweetheart, don't go too close," she warned gently, voice trembling with worry. "That dog is scared. It's not safe." But Mia's gaze never wavered from Max. She moved forward, each step deliberate, bridging the gap between innocence and courage. Max, chained and trembling, lifted his head as Mia neared. His eyes, dark pools of pain and longing, met hers for a fleeting moment. In that exchange, a silent conversation began, one without words, but filled with understanding. The dog's growl was low and uncertain, but not threatening. He was a creature caught between fear and hope, recognizing the gentle spirit before him. Mia knelt slowly, careful not to startle Max. She extended a small hand, fingers curled slightly, and whispered, "It's okay, boy. I'm here." The dog's body stiffened, but then, with a hesitant breath, he lowered his head toward her palm. The moment their touch connected, something unspoken passed between them, a bond forged in compassion and trust. Sarah stepped closer, her heart pounding. "Mia, please," she urged, but the toddler's eyes were locked on Max's trembling form. The crowd of neighbors watching from a distance murmured softly, some in admiration, others in concern. How could such a small child show such fearlessness? How could she reach a dog that so many had avoided? Despite the chain's cold bite and Max's wary stance, Mia kept reaching out. She softly stroked the dog's damp fur, her touch delicate yet steady, a balm to his aching soul. The whimpers grew softer, the tension easing from Max's frame as he leaned into the kindness offered. It was as if Mia's innocence could break through the walls of pain and loneliness that had enclosed the dog for so long. Nearby, a few neighbors whispered to each other. "She's got away with animals," one said, eyes wide. "Like she understands them better than we do." Another nodded. "It's like she's speaking a language only Max and she share." The quiet crowd seemed to hold its breath, witnessing a rare moment of pure connection. Mia's father, David, finally joined his wife, offering a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We need to get help for him," he said softly, but he didn't pull Mia away. Instead, he knelt beside her, letting his presence be a silent support as she comforted Max. The toddler's insistence was unwavering, a beacon of hope in the growing dusk. The dog's eyes fluttered closed briefly, surrendering to the gentle strokes and warm presence. For the first time in what felt like forever, Max allowed himself to feel safe, a fragile trust blossoming despite the harsh reality of his chains. Mia's small voice murmured soothing words, unintelligible to most, but full of meaning between them. Neighbors began to inch closer, their initial fear giving way to curiosity and empathy. The sight of the chained dog and the fearless toddler formed a scene that tugged at everyone's heartstrings. It was a story unfolding before their eyes, one of resilience, bravery, and the healing power of kindness. Over the next few minutes, Mia stayed by Max's side, ignoring the cold seeping through her jacket and the occasional warning from adults to keep back. She seemed to understand something deeper, that this dog needed her, and that she could be the one to bring light back into his dark world. Each touch, each whispered word, wove a tapestry of trust that transcended words or fears. As night fell and streetlights flickered on, the bond between toddler and dog grew stronger. Max's whimpers faded into soft sighs as he nestled closer to Mia, their connection a testament to the innocence and courage that children carry. It was a reminder to all watching that sometimes the smallest hearts hold the greatest strength. That evening marked the beginning of a remarkable journey, not just for Max and Mia, but for an entire community awakened by the simple truth that compassion can break even the strongest chains. In the silent dance of trust between a little girl and a suffering dog, hope was born anew. Word traveled fast through the small neighborhood, carried on whispered conversations, phone calls, and soon the relentless waves of social media. What began as a quiet, heartwarming scene of a toddler comforting a chained German shepherd soon grew into a story that captured the hearts and minds of everyone nearby and far beyond. The news spread first from neighbor to neighbor. People talked about the brave little girl, Mia, who had reached through the cold and fear to offer hope to a dog many had overlooked. Soon, posts appeared on local Facebook groups and Twitter feeds, photos and videos shared by those who had witnessed the touching encounter. The image of Max, the chained, trembling dog, and Mia's small hand reaching out to soothe him ignited a powerful response. By the next day, a small crowd had gathered near the spot where Max had been found. Concerned neighbors brought blankets and food for the dog, while others brought umbrellas to shield the pair from the unrelenting rain. Animal rights activists arrived with quiet determination, their eyes scanning the area, whispering about the dog's suffering and the urgent need for rescue. Local journalists soon caught wind of the story. Reporters from nearby stations and newspapers appeared, cameras in hand, eager to capture interviews and bring attention to Max's plight. For many, the image of Mia's fearless compassion provided a poignant contrast to the neglect Max had endured, making the story impossible to ignore. Veterinarians and animal welfare experts volunteered to assess Max's condition. They arrived with equipment, approaching the dog cautiously to avoid causing further stress. The examination revealed the toll that neglect and confinement had taken, wounds from the harsh metal chain, malnutrition, and signs of fear deeply etched into Max's eyes. Questions swirled. Who had left Max chained and crying? How long had he been there, forgotten and alone? Investigators began tracing the origins of the chain and the property where Max was found. Rumors flew. Was this a case of deliberate abuse, or had Max been abandoned in desperation? The answers were elusive, but the community's resolve only grew stronger. Meanwhile, Mia's family found themselves thrust into the spotlight. Her parents spoke softly in interviews, expressing a mix of pride, worry, and hope. "Mia is just a little girl," her mother said, eyes glistening. But she saw what so many adults ignored, the pain and loneliness. "We just want Max to be safe now." The community was torn. Some neighbors expressed frustration and anger toward whoever had allowed Max to suffer. Others wrestled with protective instincts, concerned about the safety of both the dog and their families. Heated debates erupted at community meetings and online forums, centering on how to best help Max and prevent future cruelty. Animal cruelty laws came under scrutiny. Local advocates pushed for stricter enforcement and clearer guidelines on pet ownership responsibilities. Discussions about education and community vigilance became frequent topics at neighborhood gatherings. The story of Max and Mia had sparked more than just compassion. It had ignited a call to action. At the heart of the discussion were powerful emotions: empathy for the dog's suffering, admiration for Mia's bravery, and a collective desire to do better. People shared stories of their own pets, some recalling moments of fear and vulnerability, others celebrating the joy animals bring to their lives. Max's story became a mirror reflecting the community's values and hopes. Yet, amid the outpouring of support, tensions remained. A few voices questioned whether Max was safe to keep around, worried about unpredictable behavior after trauma. Others worried about the toddler's exposure to danger, fearing that her boldness might lead to harm. These conflicting views underscored the complexity of healing after neglect. Animal welfare groups worked alongside local authorities to coordinate a rescue plan. The goal was clear: to free Max from his chains, provide immediate medical care, and find a loving home where he could heal. Volunteers organized fundraisers to cover veterinary bills and shelter costs, fueled by the community's growing dedication. Throughout this whirlwind, Mia continued to visit Max, her small presence a steady source of comfort. Her family made sure these visits were safe, balancing the toddler's affection with the dog's fragile health. The bond between them was a beacon of hope, reminding everyone that even the smallest acts of kindness could create ripples of change. As the days passed, the neighborhood's concern transformed into a collective mission. Max was no longer just a chained dog. He had become a symbol of resilience and the power of compassion. And Mia, with her fearless heart, had become a living reminder that sometimes courage comes in the smallest packages. The story touched people far beyond the streets where Max had suffered. Donations poured in from strangers, messages of support arrived from distant towns, and the local government pledged to review animal welfare policies. Max's plight had awakened a community, and the world, to the urgent need for kindness and responsibility. Yet, the journey was far from over. Questions about Max's past lingered, and the road to healing promised to be long and uncertain. But in the midst of uncertainty, the growing awareness and solidarity among neighbors offered a new beginning, not just for Max, but for an entire community learning to stand up for those who cannot speak for themselves. And so, under the watchful eyes of neighbors and the unwavering love of a toddler, Max's story continued to unfold. What started as a painful discovery had blossomed into a movement of hope, compassion, and shared responsibility. The chains that once bound him now served as a stark reminder of what could be overcome and what needed to change. As days passed since Max's discovery, the cold chain around his neck had become a symbol of neglect, a painful reminder of his suffering. Despite the warmth from the growing community support, Max's condition worsened. The wounds on his neck were infected, his ribs becoming more pronounced beneath his matted fur. The winter wind cut sharply through the neighborhood streets, and the threat of further harm, whether from exposure, cruelty, or neglect, loomed heavy in the air. One gray afternoon, dark clouds rolled in faster than anyone expected. Rain began to fall in heavy sheets, soaking the streets and chilling the bones of every living creature outside. The neighborhood, usually quiet and peaceful, was suddenly tense. Max, still chained to the same old post, trembled violently, his teeth chattering uncontrollably. He tried to curl into himself for warmth, but the chain held him firm, preventing him from finding comfort. At that moment, little Mia, no more than 3 years old, ran toward Max's side. Her small boots splashed through puddles as she hurried, her face etched with worry and determination. Her parents called after her, voices full of fear, telling her to stay back, but Mia's mind was made up. She could not leave Max there, suffering alone in the rain. Reaching the dog, Mia wrapped her tiny arms around Max's shivering body, pressing her cheek against his wet fur. The dog whimpered softly, a sound that echoed deep inside the hearts of everyone who heard it. The chain rattled faintly, and for a moment, it seemed as if Max was trying to stand taller, drawing strength from Mia's embrace. Neighbors watching from their windows gasped at the sight of the toddler refusing to leave the dog's side. Some rushed outside with umbrellas and blankets, others dialing emergency numbers. It was a raw, powerful moment, the vulnerability of a child and an abused dog meeting in mutual courage and compassion. Despite the pouring rain and pleas from adults, Mia held her ground. Her voice, small but unwavering, broke through the storm. "He's cold. We have to help Max," she said, gripping the chain with all her might, as if willing it to break. Her innocence and bravery stunned everyone around her. The sound of approaching sirens soon cut through the rain-soaked air. Local animal control officers and emergency responders arrived swiftly, alerted by neighbors who had called for help. Veterinarians followed closely behind, prepared to treat Max and remove him from the cruel confinement. As the rescuers worked, Mia stayed close, her eyes never leaving Max. She whispered soothing words, her presence a calming force amid the chaos. Witnesses said that, in that moment, the dog's trembling slowed, as if comforted by the toddler's unwavering love. The rescue was not simple. The old chain was rusted and stubborn, but with careful tools and skilled hands, the officers finally freed Max. As the collar fell away, the dog's posture changed. He stretched, lifting his head higher, eyes brighter despite exhaustion. The community erupted in quiet cheers and tears. Mia's courageous act had been the catalyst that moved everyone into action, transforming concern into decisive rescue. Stories of her bravery spread quickly, inspiring not just neighbors, but people in nearby towns and across social media. Local news stations featured Mia's story prominently, highlighting how a small child's compassion had sparked hope for a forgotten animal. Fundraisers were organized to cover Max's medical care, and volunteers came forward to foster and eventually adopt him. But the impact went beyond Max's immediate rescue. Mia's fearless determination became a symbol for the neighborhood, a reminder that even the youngest among them could stand against cruelty and injustice. Town meetings were filled with discussions on how to better protect animals, and new neighborhood watch groups formed, determined to keep an eye out for any signs of neglect. Animal welfare organizations joined forces with the community, bringing resources and education programs to the area. Schools invited speakers to teach children about kindness and responsibility toward animals. The ripple effect of Mia's brave stand was undeniable. Yet amid the celebration and newfound hope, a whisper of mystery lingered. During the rescue, a local volunteer had noticed something unusual, a faded tag hidden beneath Max's collar, partially obscured but bearing a strange insignia. It hinted at a past far more complex than anyone had imagined. Mia's parents, protective but curious, began working quietly with animal experts to uncover more about Max's history. The tag suggested that Max may have been part of a rescue operation himself or connected to someone important, a clue that promised to unravel a deeper story, one that could change how the neighborhood understood Max's suffering and survival. For now, though, the focus remained on healing and hope. Max, once chained and crying, was now surrounded by love and care. And Mia, the toddler whose small hands had helped break the chains, both literal and figurative, became a beacon of innocence, courage, and the undeniable power of kindness. Her act of bravery had done more than save a dog. It had united a community, sparked change, and reminded everyone that sometimes the greatest heroes come in the smallest, most unexpected forms. In the days following Max's dramatic rescue, the neighborhood buzzed with a mix of emotions: relief, sorrow, and a growing determination to understand the full story behind the chained German Shepherd. What had happened to this once loyal and proud dog that left him abandoned, trapped in pain and fear? As the community waited anxiously, Mia's innocent bravery had opened the door not only to Max's salvation but to uncovering a heartbreaking truth. Veterinarians who examined Max revealed just how severe his condition had been. The wounds from the chain were deep and infected, his body starved and weak from neglect. But medical care and constant love began to restore him, and slowly, Max started to regain strength. Yet, it wasn't just physical healing that was needed. There was a story behind those chains that demanded to be told. Volunteers, inspired by Mia's courage, launched a quiet investigation. Their goal was simple but daunting: to find out who had left Max chained and crying and why. It soon became clear that Max's suffering was no accident. A tangled web of neglect, abandonment, and cruelty slowly unraveled, revealing a past that shocked even the most seasoned animal advocates. Max had once belonged to a family known to the community, a family that had loved him deeply, or so everyone thought. But rumors surfaced about hardships behind closed doors. Financial struggles, illness, and sadly, moments of anger that turned to mistreatment. The chain that had held Max was a cruel tool, a symbol of control and disregard. When circumstances worsened, Max was abandoned, left to fend for himself in the cold shadows of the neighborhood. Mia's family, once distant from these painful details, found themselves at the heart of this unfolding story. Their initial pride in Mia's brave act was now intertwined with sorrow for the life Max had endured. But above all, there was hope, a hope fueled by the toddler's innocence and the collective will of the community to make things right. Local authorities stepped in, guided by the mounting evidence and growing public support. The investigation led to charges against the responsible party, sending a strong message that cruelty and neglect would no longer be tolerated. Justice, though slow, was coming for Max and countless others like him. Throughout the legal process, Max continued to heal. His transformation was nothing short of miraculous. From a trembling, chained dog, he became a symbol of resilience. Each day, his fur grew glossy, his eyes regained their sparkle, and his tail wagged with a joy that had once seemed impossible. The veterinarians and trainers who worked with him marveled at his progress, crediting Mia's early kindness as the spark that ignited his will to survive. The community rallied around Max's rehabilitation, organizing fundraisers, volunteer schedules, and even plans for his future forever home. Mia's family made a heartfelt decision to adopt Max, believing that their daughter's bond with the dog was a healing force for both. Together, they embarked on a new chapter, one defined by love, trust, and second chances. Reflections from town leaders echoed the profound impact of this story. The mayor spoke at a community gathering, praising Mia's courage and the unity that Max's rescue had inspired. "This isn't just about one dog or one child," the mayor said. "It's about a community coming together to protect the vulnerable, to stand for kindness, and to demand better for all creatures who share our world." Animal welfare experts weighed in, emphasizing how early compassion and intervention can change lives. Mia's story is a powerful example of how empathy, no matter the age, can become a catalyst for justice and healing, one veterinarian explained. It reminds us that the smallest acts of kindness often create the biggest ripples. Mia's parents, still marveling at their daughter's bravery, shared their hopes for the future. They spoke of teaching Mia that standing up for those who cannot speak for themselves is one of life's greatest responsibilities. They hoped that her story would inspire others to look closely, listen carefully, and act courageously. This tale of a chained German shepherd and a fearless toddler quickly became more than a local news story. It grew into a symbol, a beacon of hope, resilience, and the profound power of standing up for the vulnerable. Social media users from around the world shared Max and Mia's journey, touched by the reminder that kindness and courage often come from the most unexpected places. Max's story did not end with his rescue or even with justice served. It evolved into a lasting legacy that transformed a neighborhood and touched millions of hearts. He was no longer a symbol of suffering but of strength, recovery, and the unbreakable bond between a child and a dog. Through every wound healed and every wag of his tail, Max carried the message that no one is ever truly alone when met with love. And through Mia's unwavering compassion, the world was reminded that even the smallest voices can shout the loudest for justice and hope. As the weeks turned into months, Max's transformation became a living testament to the power of love and resilience. The once chained and frightened German shepherd now thrived in a safe, warm home surrounded by people who cherished him. His coat gleamed under the sunlight, his eyes sparkled with a newfound joy, and his tail wagged freely, no longer weighed down by fear or pain. Each day, he grew stronger, both in body and spirit, a shining example of what care and compassion can achieve. Beside him stood Mia, the little girl whose innocent bravery had sparked this incredible journey. With each passing day, Mia blossomed as well, her confidence swelling alongside her empathy. She learned what it meant to stand up for those who cannot speak, and her heart grew bigger with every gentle touch she gave Max. Their bond, formed in that moment of crisis, had blossomed into an unbreakable friendship built on trust and unconditional love. Max wasn't just a pet, he was a symbol for the entire community, a living reminder that even in the darkest situations, hope can take root and flourish. Whether wandering the neighborhood streets or curling up beside Mia at bedtime, Max carried with him the story of courage, healing, and second chances. His presence reminded everyone that care and kindness are powerful forces, capable of changing lives in ways big and small. Reflecting on this journey, it's clear that sometimes the smallest acts carry the greatest weight. Mia's innocent heart, her fearless compassion, and her willingness to act in the face of suffering inspired not only Max's rescue but a wave of awareness throughout the community. It's a call to all of us, to protect the vulnerable, to offer kindness without hesitation, and to believe that courage knows no age. As the sun set behind their home one peaceful evening, Mia knelt beside Max, wrapping her tiny arms around his neck. The dog nuzzled her gently, eyes full of gratitude and love. In that quiet moment, words were unnecessary, two souls, healed and whole, sharing a promise to watch over each other forever. Their story closes on a hopeful note, a beautiful reminder that love can conquer pain, innocence can spark change, and together we can build a kinder world. Life has a way of surprising us. Sometimes, connections form in ways we don't understand. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible journeys. Until next time, stay curious and keep believing.